My name is Bob Stone. I'm the Vice Chair of the Underhill Selectboard. I'm going to call this regular scheduled Select Board meeting to order. It is now 6 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is opening public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment to the Select Board?
Ryan's here for the inventory discussion.
So seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, well, I guess before we get too far, are there any adjustments to the agenda that we need to or would like to make? I have none. So the second item on the agenda is to consider phase 2 of the natural resources inventory cost estimate. And Wilmot is here tonight to help us with that. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you for seeing me. Ryan is one of the members on our committee, and he's here too to answer any questions you might have.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So an update, we did phase 1. We contracted with Arrowwood last July, and they finished the phase 1 of this inventory, which included creating maps of land cover, of upland natural communities, of wetland communities, as well as identifying large forest blocks that are significant in town. We had contracted with them for a little over $13,000. They recently sent another invoice, so the total they've spent is about $11,000. So they came under budget on phase 1. Phase 2, however, includes a little bit more than we had anticipated originally when we had divided it into 13,000 and 13,000. So, hi Karen. Karen's also on our inventory committee. Yeah. So the request for phase 2, Arrowwood submitted sort of 2 cost estimates. One at $12,500, which would give us less field work in identifying, in particular, wildlife areas, wildlife corridors. Their maximum would be $17,000. Which is what our committee would really prefer, because, we're probably only going to do this once in, the next 10 or 20 years. And it would be most helpful to know where the significant wildlife habitat and corridors are. And that's what makes up the bulk of the additional funds that would be needed for that. The way the process for phase 2 is, since it's largely based on the ground, is that our committee would be doing landowner contacts for those areas that Arrowwood would like to ground truth or to do any inventory work on. Yeah, so the Planning Commission, the Conservation Commission, they're both waiting for this inventory to finish. So what we'd like from you tonight is agreement to spend money on phase 2 of this inventory, in particular to phase it at the maximum amount that was requested.
Do you want to just give you a little background on the numbers? So when we budgeted the mapping, the inventory mapping, we also included the low-level imagery that we wanted to do. That was flown this spring. So I think we were planning around $4,000 for that, and then the remainder. So 17 was the total on the budget for mapping, and this is what this falls under. So we did get a firm number from the CCRPC about the flight. Okay, so we were committed. So our first committed quote was $4,400. So it came in cheaper. It's $2,900 for the imagery. So that's the good news. So if you take the 17,000, you subtract the imagery, and that gives you $1,975 left over from this fiscal year that we're in.
How much?
About 2,000.
About 2,000. So that settles us up with the mapping and the, so the 17, don't get confused with that. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. But basically we're 1975 left over from the Arrowwood
In this year's.
in this year's.
So you're paying for that mapping in this fiscal year rather than next fiscal year?
No,
That's in
So
next year's.
that's in next year's, but next year's is 17,000. What I'm getting at is basically we're going to wind up short $2,000 to make it simple. If you
In
went,
next year, based on what's budgeted for next year and the increase in the quote for phase 2, what we're asking is, can we expend those extra dollars to get this project done next year? And since the budget's already been approved, Sandy came to me and said, is this doable? And I think, I think it's definitely doable. So that's why I'm here.
So the difference from what we have budgeted to what the proposal is how much total?
the budget was, the quote was for 13,275, okay? But they closed out at 11,300. So basically there's $1,975 left over from this phase.
So that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is
What we
that, so
budgeted for next year.
we, as far as I'm concerned, we hit the target. We came in under budget, so we hit the target and we're good with phase 1.
Right.
What we're talking about is phase 2.
Correct.
In phase 2, we have how much budgeted to complete phase 2?
If you subtract it, we'd have 14,000.
Yeah.
So
We're looking
14,000,
for 3.
and you're looking for a total of 17,165. So the spread is about $3,000 or $4,000. So if I was to look at this, to get to my question, if I was to look at this and said, if it's $3,000 or $4,000 and I saved a couple $1,000s from this fiscal year going into next fiscal year, really I'm only out $1,000 or $2,000.
Correct.
Yeah. 2,000 short.
But can we take dollars from this year and earmark them for next year? Not technically.
Not technically. But I have, it's my job to pay attention to the finances for this year and look at how they're going to flow into next year. And based on what I'm seeing this year so far, which I've been looking at every day, I don't think a few $1,000s is going to have a negative impact on us. But I think, and I think completing this next year has a positive impact.
So I'm going to move so that we can have a discussion.
Okay.
I'm going to move that we authorize for phase 2 of the Conservation Commission's project to go up to the higher amount, which was, my computer just went to sleep, the 17,165. $17,165. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So now we can have discussion on the motion.
My biggest question will be where we find the money in fiscal 24's budget. You're saying that we'll likely have a reserve.
We'll likely have a surplus.
Surplus, sorry, not a reserve, surplus. It can be used for reserve.
Not for reserve, but there's, we have the contingencies that are built into our budget. Like the select board contingency.
I feel it would be no different than if we earmarked $14,000 for phase 1 and we thought it was going to cost $14,000 for phase 1 and it came in a couple $1,000s short. It may be the similar type of situation with phase 2, is that this is our best guess of what we think it's
Right.
going to cost. Now, we could go the other end of the spectrum and say it may go over that too, but this is kind of our educated guess of what we feel phase 2 is going to cost. So I feel because we're talking about a few $1,000s And this is relatively important, I think, for the town to have this completed. I would support, going in that direction so that we could get that data, so it would be beneficial to the Planning Commission and the Conservation Commission, I would assume immensely. I'm assuming
And
that if
it's only a few $1,000s.
Right.
It's not,
Right.
it's not
True.
5,000, it's not 10, it's not, so that's where I'm saying that's why we have some contingencies built in.
At the same time, those few thousand, this is like $3,100, $3,200, they add up. So just ask that as we get into the next years, that we find where that money's going to come from.
I
Just so we
promise
can-
you I will.
Just so we can plug that.
I promise you.
Excellent.
Any more discussion? Dan's not with us. Ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion carries. Is there anything else we need to discuss about? Yes, thank you. Any other discussion as it relates to phase 2?
The only thing I can ask is we still need a contract from them. It's for phase 2, for fiscal year 24.
Okay.
So now that they know.
Now that we have. an
Yeah, now
idea.
that we have this, then
Plug
that'll be.
Is
So-
that usual that they send us
They
the
supply
contract?
it all the
Yeah.
time.
They do.
I sent you this before.
Yeah.
They need to write
Yeah.
us a contract
Yeah.
telling exactly
Okay.
what
You
they're
can
going to do.
email me if you need a copy of
Keep
anything.
that one.
Yeah, hit this one and then,
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's their responsibility. Yeah.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the reappointments to the Recreation Committee.
Correct. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We have a memo dated May 31st, 2023, addressed to the Underhill Selectboard from Brad, requesting reappointments of Melanie Poley and Emily Soison. Am I pronouncing that right? I apologize if I'm not.
So Melanie Poley's term expired and she's not seeking reappointment.
She's not seeking. There you go. Thank you. And then, so
Emily-
Emily
Solson.
Solson and Lynn Kemp are both requesting reappointments for a 3-year term, retroactive from April 1st, 2023. In a previous conversation I had with Brad, I asked if both Emily and Lynn had signed the conflict of interest policy, and you affirmed that they both have. So I will move that we reappoint Emily and Lynn to the Recreation Committee.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Who is the Recreation Committee planning to put a person forward for Melanie's post?
Yeah, so there's been several Front Porch Forum posts Anton's put out. They're looking for a replacement,
Do they have somebody lined up yet, or?
but that's not uncommon
It's in the
for
works.
committees. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ready for the vote? Dan's not on yet. So all those in favor of reappointment of Emily and Lynn, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries 2-0. We are ahead of schedule by 15 minutes. The next item on the agenda is to review the draft of the ARPA resolution documents. And Jennifer is here tonight to help us with that.
So after the last meeting about ARPA, when the board approved the joint projects between Underhill and Jericho, the board asked me to work with our attorneys to come up with a resolution for the board that would basically say, here's the background of the ARPA, where the money came from, how much there is, and that the board, the process basically, and thereby signifying that, we have this money and here's what we're going to do with it. And then the intention is that the person who then accepts the money is accepting it for the project that was intended. So there's two pieces here. Joe, our attorney, said we didn't have to have the award certificate, but in meeting with Brad and Sherry, and also from my reviewing the video that I saw when you guys were talking about it at our last meeting, I felt like it's important for the organization, when they receive a check from us, to have something that they are signing, that they are acknowledging receipt of this check for this intended purpose, and that attached to that is a copy of the resolution that the select board signed and a copy of their project that was approved by the select board. So there's a little bit of checks and balances. And the way that I look at this is if you equate it to a grant, like a federal grant or a state grant, the stuff that we are required to submit for grants, we'd have to have a full-time employee, which a lot of big cities are doing, to manage the money if we really wanted to babysit the organizations. But I think we all agree that in good faith, if they sign these documents, according to Joe, once they take the check and they deposit it, they're basically acknowledging acceptance of the terms, which is that they are taking this money to do the project that was intended. So.
And the resolution will be recorded in the land records.
Yeah, and the resolution forever in perpetuity will be recorded once it's signed by the three of you.
So I will make a motion that so we can discuss this, make a motion that we accept the notice of award for the ARPA funds and the resolution as presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
I think this hits the nail on the head in terms of wrapping it up in a nice, neat, tidy package, putting the bow on it. Here's the intention of the money. Here's the resolution. This is what the select board understands you're going to do with it. So I'm in support. I
am as well. I would just like to see the notice received back signed before funds are dispersed. That it's not a debatable thing. It's just like, this is the way it is. And if you want it, this is what you have to do, and you have to sign this. If you're not going to sign it, then you're not going to get the funds.
Yeah, and it would go certified mail for sure.
So as long as we're clear that the notice has to be signed and returned, and once we have that, then the drafts can be sent to the various organizations. I'm good.
Yeah, and you, the three of you, will have to sign the resolution. So the reason that Brad and I thought we should present this today was that then at the next meeting, when all three of you are together, the resolution could be signed at the meeting where we're going to be going over the ARPA proposals.
Next week's meeting.
Which is next week.
Next week's special meeting. So today you don't want us to approve the resolution because
Yeah.
there's only 2 weeks?
Yeah. So we're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just wanted to make sure we have it in place for the next meeting.
We don't have Dan on the remote or on the telephone. Is that right?
No, but he might pop in shortly, but
Do you feel comfortable voting on this? Or would you like to wait, or what would you like to do?
I did email this to all of you last week. So, I mean, I know Dan's seen it. But
Kurt here wants to say something, but you can't say something unless you come up, unless he wants to recognize you.
Yeah, hold on. I just want to, my questions to you, Patty.
I just want to make sure that Dan has some indication that he's okay with it, so that we're not passing it, and then all of a sudden Dan's like, wait a minute, time out.
I agree.
You could table this.
If you want to table this, and make a motion to table it, we could do that. Or we could hear from, geez, I'm crow. Kurt. Well, I don't know why I have brain fart there for a minute. Pardon me. It's like,
It's the age.
I know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, oh.
Kurt forgot who I was one day too.
And I know Kurt's on the committee, but I'm not pointing you out, but I think we need to be a little careful about inner discussion, because we don't allow a lot of people to speak.
No, I understand.
And I don't think it's fair, but I love Kurt to death and he's part of the family here, but
That's
unless.
a good point. It's procedural etiquette.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
Well, I think it's the discretion of the chair to recognize people if they would like to speak, and whether the chair wants to recognize or not, I think it's the chair's discretion.
Exactly.
So if you want to, with no further ado, I would like to recognize Kurt. So come on up, Kurt, and give us your words of wisdom.
Well, actually, not my words of wisdom, they're more Brad's and Ben's. I have been asked by the ARPA, not the ARPA, the Mills River Park Committee to help out with one of the projects that you're looking to fund. And that is the parking lot enhancements to improve the drainage in the Lowe's Fund. And so I've been working with a guy by the name of Chris Tardy from MRP, and told him I would get with Jericho Select Board, and that I'd also check in with you guys about, is there some way that we could in a better financial manner, get that project accomplished. After talking with Brad and Jen, I changed directions from trying to figure out a way for the town to do it and get reimbursed by ARPA to kind of follow what Jen was saying, which is let the train go the way it is, that you guys are going to assign X dollars in Jericho as well to this project. But then the question came into play, if that is done that way, is it possible for MRP to hire either Jericho or Underhill's road crew to do this project?
No, absolutely not. Because
So
we're
that's my
not,
question.
we're not for profit organization. I'm sorry to speak for you, Bob, but that's not okay.
So you've looked a little further into it?
No, but that's not okay. You can't just hire a municipality to do a job. I almost bet my life on that. But
Okay.
show me an example and maybe I'd change my mind. But I just think it's,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's so messy to intermingle in-kind donations with federal funds.
So I guess the way I'm looking at it, Kurt, is that my understanding is that the request is for them to hire this out.
Right, contracted through.
And if they wish to now enter into a side conversation with the towns of Underhill and Jericho and ask them to contribute some labor or whatever for that, as long as I feel strongly like Brad does, as long as the ARPA funds are not going to either one of the municipalities, and they're just going to use their trucks to haul the gravel or whatever, and they want to pay for the gravel itself, directly from the mill, maybe, or where the quarry, maybe that would be okay. Or maybe it's just like, we shouldn't even go down that road. Maybe they should just contract it all out. I think there's certain considerations that we should really look at before we just say absolutely, to avoid any problems.
I understand we don't want to have any impropriety.
I think that's the concern, is that you're dealing with, the money's been given to us, but we're kind of like the grantee and they're the sub-grantee. So to then involve the two municipalities that are giving the money, it starts to get messy. And I just want us to be really careful that there isn't any clawback from the federal government because of something that we do. So
Is it something Lisa can help us with, or?
I don't know that it's
So-
worth it. We're
so
giving
they-
them the money, they go do it.
So they gave us a
I just-
proposal
I
of what
feel
it
like
was.
it's not worth it.
They gave us a proposal of what it's going to take to get the job done.
Yep.
And we're splitting it 38-62.
Yep.
And then just there they are on their way. But however, I'll just say that what I'm scared of is you have coordination with the two towns.
Right.
We have $31,500 on the line for a grant project that needs to get finished by September 1 over on Lower English. It's part of a
Yes.
bigger project that it's tied into another $60,000 grant. We have the valley to ditch. We have failed culverts all over the place.
Right. We don't want our guys doing other projects.
I just don't, Nate has got enough on his plate right now. I just think I appreciate the effort, but if maybe the ARPA funds weren't involved and it was coming out of the budget, I'd say sure, but
I think it's
Yeah.
gonna,
I think it's just too messy.
I guess the response I would say is I would proceed very, very, very cautiously.
Yeah, again, they asked us for our advice, and one of the
I
things
think I speak for the town saying that I would proceed very cautiously, that there are absolute concerns that the town would have if they were to use these funds for that.
And the bigger point is, Brad pointed out, is just
Our
on
guys
staff capacity.
Yep.
I mean,
We've got
I
enough to do.
appreciate the effort or the
Well, the idea behind it
idea
to save money makes
Yeah.
sense, but I think there's a
we don't want to
some,
lose on the other end, so I get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's just,
Very
it
good.
makes life super complicated.
I'm good.
But, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So do you want to make a motion to table this until either Dan is able to join us or until the next meeting?
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion on, I don't know if it's not a debatable or discussion. So there's a motion to table and has been seconded. All those in favor of tabling this until Dan can join us this evening remotely or until our next scheduled select board meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Ayes carry it 2-0. So stay tuned. Next item on the agenda is the Underhill Highways Infrastructure and Equipment Committee. Welcome back, Kurt, to the hot seat.
This is the best item on the agenda is the Beaver thing.
Beaver issues on Corbett Road. Discuss the possible solutions.
As you know, the Corbett Bridge was installed a couple years ago, and almost immediately after it got put in place, replacing a culvert that was like a 3-4 foot diameter culvert, the Beavers built a dam right across the front of the bridge, and not only just in front of it, but right up tight to it. And so we're very concerned that even though we spent all that time and money to build this bridge that would prevent this from happening, it didn't. The Beavers, as you know, are very busy and persistent in their way. And so as opposed to having Nate have to go down there and deal with it routinely, we as a committee kind of took this on a bit because we were responsible for putting the bridge in place. We actually installed kind of a Beaver baffle, had the contractor take care of that. And it didn't take the Beavers more than 6 months, and they'd already figured it out, plugged it up, and Nate's already had to clean that out at least once, if not twice. Our biggest concern is we get a good heavy rain with that dam as close as it is to the bridge that it's not going to accept enough water going between the dam and the bottom of the bridge, because it's only a foot or two apart, as you can see in the photo. That's going to wash over the road and potentially take the road out, stranding 20 households or so up above where the bridge is. So we've met with a guy by the name of Skip Lyle, who runs a company, has been in business for 20, 25 years or so, and his claim to fame is managing beaver habitat wildlife in a fashion where he doesn't have to shoot them, he doesn't have to do anything to harm their way of life and their habitat, but rather he kind of works to coexist with them and a town or an organization's needs. Our needs are to keep the road open at all times and not have our road crew having to go under duress and bad weather conditions, have to deal with these things. And in talking with him, I met with him physically at Corbett. He looked at the site and said, absolutely, we can engineer a custom design, which is what he does for each site. He looks at it, determines what's the best way to go about doing that. He said that his designs are time tested. He's been doing this for, like I said, 25 some odd years. And even though when I talked to Nate, Nate's view is kind of like many people, that beavers are just indomitable. They don't give up. They just keep going at it. He has outfunked them from what I can tell based on looking at his website, talking with him. And my sense is we should invest some money in getting him to resolve the issue that we have with that bridge right now.
Does he guarantee it that if it doesn't work, we get rid of it?
I specifically asked him that question. And he said, my work stands for itself. I don't, he'll come back and keep working at it if it doesn't go the way it should. But he didn't come right out and say, I guarantee it at any cost that I will do it. Now, we can write into a contract with him that we would like him to perform this and have our expectations of if anything happens within X number of years that it's on his nickel, not the town's. I can see where that'll go with him. What I'm looking for is your consensus and support for meeting with him to negotiate a fair price to have him come in, do the work just in one location. We have others in town, of course, and let's see how that works. And if we see the work and it's working great for a number of years, then I would propose that we could go consider other locations.
So do we have money in the budget for this under this fiscal year?
It is not a line item in the budget for this fiscal year, but we have highway reserve money, and that's what I would recommend we use to cover that.
I don't think that's necessary. There are some pockets of money in the highway budget for different things that are there.
Yep. That's
Tree and brush removal is one that kind of comes to mind.
So
contractors, there's a line item for that as well.
what is the projected cost of having this company come in and do their business at Corbett Road? What is the roundabout ballpark figure that you
I didn't get a
sense?
quote, but I got a $5,000-ish kind of figure. You know, might be a little more, might be a little less. You know, it
And
depends on when he gets into
is
it.
that reasonable?
I think given what he's going to do, if you looked at the contraptions that he's installed in various locations, it's work that I would expect to be more than $500 to $1,000, but not probably much more than $5,000. But I don't have a formal quote from him, and I can get that first for you if you prefer before we take the next step.
So I didn't read this in detail, and I probably should have, but my question, I guess, to you is that my basic understanding is that the town would enter into an agreement with this company.
Mm-hmm.
They come in, they set up this system, and
Yep.
this system will alleviate the Beaver problem so that it protects our bridge, and it conceivably will cost around $5,000.
Yep.
Versus what we traditionally have been doing is keeping the beavers at bay by cleaning out the brush and everything like that, or hiring a trapper and or both to try to deal with the issue.
Right. And when you trap them and move them out or put them away, then the next crop of beavers moves in not far behind it. Doesn't take them long to find a good spot, and that is a great habitat for.
So I guess I'm looking at this as almost like a trial run to see, you know, are we willing to, is the town willing to invest $5,000 into this to see if this may work?
My sense from speaking with him is he's incredibly knowledgeable about the situation. He's a Vermonter from down in the Grafton area who's stands behind his work. I don't know if he's going to give a full, you know, money back guarantee.
He's a select board member himself. I think he served 3 terms on the Grafton Select Board.
So is it your recommendation, Kurt, that we try this and see what happens?
Yeah, it is.
So that's all I need to hear. We tried to, you know, run this from the bottom up. If the people that we entrust into these committees are making recommendations to the board and they've invested a lot of time into this matter, I feel that they're using sound judgment. So I would move that we authorize up to $5,000 for the Highway Infrastructure Committee to work with the Beaver Deceivers Company to see what they can do about rehabbing or treating the beavers up near the Corbett Road Bridge. So I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Just for curiosity, can you give a less than 2 minute summary of what it does?
So
Like what its structure does, or?
you maybe have heard of Beaver baffles, which basically is a flexible pipe that the state Fish and Wildlife guy who's responsible for helping manage beavers in locations across the state, he will come in and install those. They work for a period of time, and then the beavers figure out where the water's
So
going.
basically,
They
it's
can
running
hear it.
water through the dam? Is that
Yes.
the idea?
Through, over, yes. His operation uses a valving system that is what allows you to manage the height of the water in that area that is behind the dam. And that's what's critical to us is when the water levels get too high, then you get a flush due to a big spring thaw or something, and then it goes over the road. His valving system will enable it to mitigate during normal times, but when you have that big flush, by building the fence further away from the bridge than it is today, then you've got that gap large enough to handle those normal flows that would come through in high rain or melt type situations.
And they still build their dams. They still actively use the area just like they normally would. I think he's just playing games with getting them at the right level and keeping them there.
And pushing the dam further away from the bridge. He'll physically build a fence in an area where we want them to build a dam. They're going to build a dam anyway.
Right.
You just want them to build it in the right location. And then his valving system that he uses manages the flow and the height of water behind that dam. And by keeping it at an acceptable level for the beavers, they're not compelled to want to build the dam higher because they're happy enough with what they've got. Is basically how he explained it to me.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm just wondering if it makes sense to get a quote from him. And then in the meantime, we could figure out with Jennifer where the if there's extra highway monies that could be used for it in this year, it probably wouldn't be built until next fiscal year anyway, you're saying, right?
Yeah, it'll be after July.
Yeah,
for
it'd
sure.
be after July 1. So highway funds carry over. Highway funds always carry over to the next fiscal year.
I feel we're in stable ground that we can move forward with this likely is not going to take place before July 1st and would be into the next fiscal year. So I feel that we're pretty safe with wanting to, if you want to move forward. I'm okay with that, but if
Yeah,
you'd rather pause.
I'd like to have a second set of eyes on it, just to make sure it passes the laugh test. I don't want to blow $5,000 on something that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right back in the situation of hauling out
Yep.
all the debris.
And so that's the work that we've done, is to talk to the guy on the phone, have the guy meet us out here, go through his website, understand what he's been doing in other places, read the testimonials about work he's done for other organizations. And I can't find a hole in his operation that would make me go, "Oh, this is not looking like something we want to do." He looks like he's above board and one of the best there is in the business that he's in.
I see Dan has made it onto the.
He's got his hand up.
Welcome, Dan. We are discussing. We're discussing beavers.
Yes,
Mike's.
I heard that, and I'm interested. I'm thinking that this person is local or in Vermont, and I'm wondering if he or a representative could come to our meeting. And I think that that would be valuable for us to get a good background, but also good for the public record and a public forum. In fact, we could invite the Conservation Commission to attend that meeting if we had it on the agenda to help us discuss that. But I think I would be very open to providing some highway funds for that. I think it might be a breakthrough in a problem.
So as we speak, he is in Charlotte as he was invited by the state to give a expose on the work that he does. And they've obviously invited other towns to attend and see what's going on with his business organization. Could we get him to come to just Underhill to talk to us? Probably. It might not be free, but I can ask that question.
Well, I don't know if he necessarily would have to physically come to Underhill now that we have this beautiful technology where we can remote in even from Boston, Massachusetts, right, Dan? So
That would be true. Brookline, to be exact.
well, that maybe he would be willing to tune in, from even Grafton, and give a few words, remotely on the internet here, and maybe that would be beneficial.
The other option is if we move forward and have him come out here to do this work, then while he's up here, he's going to have to stay somewhere locally. We could invite him to come out to, whether it's a select board meeting or just a separate meeting for the town to listen to what he has to say about it, because there may be other people in town who have been dealing with beavers on their property and are interested in finding out what he has to say about it.
So we have a motion on the table to spend up to $5,000 for this. The motion's been made and has been seconded. Do you want to move the question?
Dan, were you did you hear the whole discussion? I'm not sure exactly when you came on.
Motion.
So we made a motion before I saw that you were with us, Dan, about, I made a motion to spend up to $5,000 that would come out of next year's fiscal budget to have this guy come up and try this out, and it was seconded. And I'm asking if you're ready for the question. I think it'd be okay if it failed and we could come up with a new motion, or we could potentially, I guess, withdraw it and start fresh now that I know you're here. So I'd be willing to withdraw my motion, if that's okay with you. So
I read the material.
the motion's been withdrawn, so that's my ruling. So what's your pleasure on the Beaver, presentation? What would you like to do?
I'm wondering, because I know the Conservation Commission engages speakers where people come and they have a budget for that. And I'm wondering if that would be an incentive for this person to come. I know that they've had an expert on beavers come in a previous year, but I'm wondering if we should engage them to try to get some enthusiasm and a ball rolling. I don't know if you discussed this prior to my coming on, but that would just be an observation on my part.
That's fine with me. If you want to defer this to the Conservation Commission, and then wait for them to discuss this and possibly have some type of dialogue, and then wait to hear back, that certainly would be fine.
And I'd like to have him give us a quote for this specific project because we don't really know what it's going to cost, right?
I think that's a good idea.
Correct. I do not have a
So
formal
I'd like to
quote.
have him come.
Kind of an
look at the-
estimate, but not a quote.
Like have him come and look at the site and give us a
Yes.
quote.
He's been here, physically stood on Corbett Bridge and
Okay, so
knows what he would have to do to this thing. I just haven't had him physically quote it because I want to first talk with you folks about
Gotcha.
it because it's really outside the HEIC per se. We're involved in capital projects. That one was done a while back,
Yep.
but we kind of felt like we own some piece of this because we put in a bridge and gosh, right after the bat, the Beavers have already done their thing with it. So we just felt it was appropriate to follow through. And so that's why I just want to get your
Gotcha.
consensus that it was an okay thing for the HIC to take the next step.
yeah, I don't want to manage you guys like Bob said, but at the same time, I do think it makes sense given the number of dollars that we should get a quotation.
So I guess it'll be the direction of the chair to defer this to the Conservation Committee and wait to hear back from them. Okay, so
I
So you
would
want me to go to
request
the
that-
Conservation Committee to get, okay, you want to talk to the Conservation Committee about this individual and forward the information I've given to you guys to them, let them chew on it, as well as get a quote from them.
yes.
Got it.
I
We're
don't
going to
want-
do that?
I don't want a lot of moss grow on this. I think that we should do it efficiently and get a quote, have the Conservation Commission weigh in on their next meeting, and perhaps the town administrator could advise the Conservation Commission about the issue. And I don't know if Kurt, since you know something about it, if you want to be a part of that, but I think that I don't want to defer it so that we forget about it. I think that we got to stay ahead of the beavers.
Right, and that's why I'm looking to get this done this summer so that we don't go through another spring episode with a bridge that's got its opening plugged up with a beaver dam. So I know Karen well enough to be able to get on her agenda probably for our next meeting, and I'll get in touch with her to try and do that so that we can get that quote lined up for either your next meeting or the one after that. So.
Yeah, I think we could get it for the next meeting, and then typically it's always a standard procedure, right? You get a quote, we have it in writing, we understand the product we're going to get, then we get a contract with the person, we need a liability insurance from them, a hold harmless from them, especially it's got to be a little bit dangerous work, I would think, being out in the water, setting up fence and.
Well, no, they won't be in the water. We'll have to remove the dam, drain it slowly, and then once it's emptied out, then they'll go and
I see.
construct the materials at place, and then
And
the beavers will build their
does the
dam.
state have to be involved in this at all for a permitting
According to
process?
him, when I talked to him, no.
Okay, that's
This
something
is-
we'd want to check. Yeah.
Brad, can you
Yeah.
check that? I just want to make sure. Yeah, just check that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think that's
Drain
Well,
pond,
well, especially we're going to be
something.
draining the Seymour, and depending on how you do it,
And so there's a,
It could affect
Exactly.
people downstream. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
yep,
let's check
he's
into
been
all
through
that.
this many a time, so he
I'm sure.
understands.
but it seemed like there'd have to be some notification to Cambridge. Hey, by the way, there's going to be some water coming down.
They're not going to see what we're going to do because we're going to take the dam down slowly, not
Yeah.
take the whole thing out. You take it down a foot at a time and let the water, and then you take it down another foot.
Are we all clear on this as far as next steps? Okay. I'd like to go back. Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to go back to the ARPA resolution documents now that Dan is with us. Dan, we have a notice of award and resolution that has been submitted to us, and we were going to act on that, but we thought it would be wise to wait for you, and so we're excited that you're here so that we can come back to this and see if you'd like to take action as far as the notice of award for the ARPA and the joint resolution. So I would entertain a motion to deal with these two pieces of information before us.
Right, I move that we approve the notice of award and the resolution as presented in our packet.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Dan seconds that. Is there any discussion?
I read the resolution. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it looked pretty good. And I think it's really a good idea. It holds people accountable, but it also verifies the paperwork. And I think doing this responsibly is really a valuable thing so that we can, just make sure we're doing it right.
Okay. Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion of accepting the resolution and the award, notice of award, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it 3-0. So it is now 6:47, and the next item on the agenda is the town administrator's updates. So take it away, Brad.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. Not much to update, but I do have a couple of things. Underneath your agenda, you'll see, I just wanted to report on this, and this will kind of be germane to the approval of the warrants. But this was just a note we received. So we received the requisition from the church for the first requisition, asking for $20,000 from the planning grant. And this was vetted out by Jennifer and I. And this is just an email back from community development, the folks at the state. I just thought you'd be reassured to see that.
I think this is fantastic. It's an testament to you and everybody involved in this project in terms of making sure we're going through the steps in an organized, well thought out, transparent way. Thank you for all your work.
Sure, no problem. And thank the church. I mean, they did the lion's share of it. And I will just say that the money did enter the portal today, so it's in our checking account as of today. The other thing was just a little news on, I'll give an update just for the record, I guess. So Nick Atherton, our planning and zoning person, is accepted another position and will be leaving us on the 14th of June. So just a note there, and we appreciate Nick. He's been here just over a year, but we wish him well. The town staff does. And then lastly, the passive grant that you approved for me to apply for, we got that. I got acceptance of that today. So not that was a lot of competition for that, but we received it. And that's about all I have, I think.
Okay. I can or you can.
I just wanted to, on the record, recognize Nick Atherton's 1 year of service with us and thank him and show our appreciation by just extending that, that was commented tonight at the meeting. Appreciation, thanks for his year of work for us.
Will do.
I agree.
Anything- As do I. Anything else, Brad?
That is it.
All right. Well, I know this is going to break everyone's heart, but we are at 7:15 and it's only 6:50, but we are at the closing public comment period portion of the agenda. There's no one of the public present at the town hall. I'm not seeing anyone per se in the virtual world, so I think it's okay to move on to warrants and minutes. So I'd entertain a motion to accept the warrant for the pay period of June 8th through, or dated June 8th. Would someone like to make the motion to accept that?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
No.
Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of the warrant dated June 8th, the check date June 8th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries 3-0. The next item is the warrant dated May 31st. I'd entertain a motion to accept the warrant dated May 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries 3-0. The next one is a warrant dated June 6th. Is there a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. And minutes. So we have warrants here in front of me, or the June 8th, that was the first one I read. This one looks like the second one I read was for May 31st. This next one is June 5th. That also looks familiar. This one does not look familiar. There's one dated June 7th for $137.07. This is for the Medicare, Joan LaHoyer, and United Healthcare. We received an email about that after the packet had gone out. I would entertain a motion that we accept the warrant for dated June 7th for $137.07.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0. Now I think we can move on to minutes. I would entertain a motion that we accept the minutes dated May 25, 2023.
I move we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries 3-0. The next item this is a letter from, I guess this would be a correspondence. So that takes care of the warrants and minutes that we have. Next item on the agenda is a correspondence that we received for the record dated May 30th, 2023 to Mr. William Timbers from Jennifer. That letter will be part of the public record. I don't feel I need to read that, but I will reference that we have a letter to from our animal control officer to William Timbers dated 5/30/2023.
Only thing I might want to add was in regards to a dog bite.
In regards to a dog bite. That's fine. There's also an email correspondence that goes along with this letter and a licensing bill. I don't know if bill is the right word.
I think it's more or less proof of rabies vaccination.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else have any member items, correspondence, announcements that they would like to have on the record?
I do not.
I do not either.
I think we've already thanked Nick for his service to the town of Underhill. So I can't think of much else to say. We have a line item, or next item on the agenda is a executive session. So we will go into executive session per 1 VSA section 313A3, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor of going into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries 3-0. We are now in executive session at 6:58 p.m. Please stop the recording.
Okay, just for the record, I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to go downstairs, but I'll come back and close. So I guess, thank you, Aaron.
It is now 8:06 p.m. and the Underhill Selectboard is returning to open session from executive session. Then in executive session, the Selectboard has appointed Brad Holden as the interim zoning administrator for the town of Underhill effective June 15th, 2023, with a compensation package to be determined at a later time. I am unaware of any other items on the agenda, and there is no other items discussed in executive session that I'm aware of. For the record, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it 3-0. We are adjourned at 8:07. Thank you.